The discovery. The scout vessel Whispering Claw drifted silently through the abandoned sector, its sleek hull absorbing rather than reflecting the distant starlight. Commander Vex stood on the bridge, his four eyes scanning the darkness beyond the viewscreen. His scaled skin shimmered with a subtle blue bioluminescence, a trait of the krill species that they had learned to control over generations of space travel. "Scan complete, Commander," Second Lieutenant Mira reported from her station. Her voice carried the characteristic metallic undertone of all krill, an evolutionary adaptation that had once allowed their ancestors to communicate underwater. "We've detected a large object at coordinates 227 to 84,106. Initial readings suggest it's a ship." Vex's upper eyes narrowed while his lower pair remained fixed on the data scrolling across his personal console. Identification. Unknown, but the size. Mira hesitated, double-checking her readings. The size suggests a capital ship, possibly human in origin. A ripple of tension moved through the bridge crew. The humans had been gone for over a century, defeated, scattered, and ultimately forgotten by most of the younger krill. But Vex was old enough to remember the stories. The humans had fought fiercely before their defeat, and rumors persisted of secret weapons and contingency plans that had never been deployed. "Approach with caution," Vex ordered. "Full stealth protocols." The Whispering Claw adjusted course, its gravitic engines making no sound as they propelled the ship forward. As they drew closer, the massive silhouette of an ancient warship emerged from the darkness. "Visual confirmation," announced the tactical officer. "Human battleship, Orion class according to our database. Registry markings identify it as the Prometheus." Vex felt his breathing passages constrict slightly. The Prometheus had been one of the most feared human warships during the final days of the conflict. Reports had claimed it was destroyed in the Battle of Proxima Centauri, yet here it floated, seemingly intact. "Life signs?" Vex asked. "None detected. Power readings are minimal, barely enough to maintain basic system integrity. The ship appears to be in a dormant state." Vex considered his options. High Command would expect a thorough investigation. If the Prometheus contained any valuable technology or intelligence, it could enhance his standing significantly. "Prepare a boarding team," he decided. "Full environmental suits and defensive measures. We don't know what automated systems might still be active." 30 minutes later, Vex led a team of 6 specialists toward the massive human vessel. Their boarding shuttle, barely larger than a cargo container, approached a secondary airlock on the battleship's port side. "The ship's outer hull is surprisingly intact," observed Krell, the team's xenotech specialist. His manipulator limbs worked expertly over a portable scanner. "Minimal micrometeorite damage despite drifting for nearly a century." "Could it have been placed here deliberately?" asked Mira, who had insisted on joining the boarding party. "Possible," Vex replied. "The humans were known for their contingency planning." The shuttle's magnetic clamps engaged with a dull thud that resonated through the small craft. Adaptive seals formed around the airlock, creating a pressurized passage between the vessels. "Atmosphere beyond the airlock is thin but breathable," Krell reported. "Temperature is approximately 255 Kelvin. Emergency systems must still be functioning at minimal capacity. Maintain suit integrity regardless," Vex ordered. "We take no unnecessary risks." The airlock cycled open with surprising smoothness, revealing the dark corridor beyond. The team activated their suit lights, illuminating the interior of the long-abandoned human warship. The passageway stretched before them, its walls lined with conduits and control panels now dark and silent. "Proceed to the command center," Vex instructed. "Standard search formation." They moved through the ship cautiously, each footstep echoing in the cavernous halls. The Prometheus was massive, far larger than any krill vessel. Its corridors were designed for beings taller and broader than the krill, creating an unsettling sense of vulnerability in the boarding party. "These markings indicate we're approaching the central command structure," Krell noted, pointing to symbols on a bulkhead. 2 more levels up. As they ascended through the ship, Vex had noticed subtle changes in their surroundings. The emergency lighting grew marginally brighter, and occasionally they heard distant sounds. The soft hum of systems receiving power or the quiet hiss of atmosphere being cycled. "The ship is responding to our presence," Mira observed, her voice tight with concern. "Automated systems," Vex replied, projecting more confidence than he felt. Nothing more. The bridge of the Prometheus was an impressive sight even in its dormant state. Semicircular in design, it featured multiple tiered levels surrounding a central command position. Massive viewports, currently opaque, dominated the forward section. "Begin data extraction," Vex ordered as the team spread out to examine various stations. Priority on weapons systems, navigational logs, and command protocols. Krell approached what appeared to be the main engineering console. "Commander, these readings suggest the ship's core is not completely dormant. There's a power reserve at approximately 3% capacity." After a century, Mira sounded skeptical. Their power cells were efficient, but not that efficient. "It's being maintained," Krell insisted. "Something is keeping this ship alive, however minimally." Vex joined him at the console, studying the unfamiliar human interface. "Can you access the ship's logs? Perhaps there's an explanation." "I can try, but—" Krell stopped mid-sentence as his manipulator touched a control surface. The console suddenly illuminated, glowing with a soft blue light that spread to adjacent stations. Throughout the bridge, systems began to activate, displays flickering to life after decades of silence. "What did you do?" Vex demanded. "Nothing." Krell backed away from the console. "I barely touched it." A low hum resonated throughout the ship as power began flowing through long dormant circuits. The opaque viewports gradually became transparent, revealing the stars beyond and the whispering claw floating nearby. "We need to leave," Mira urged. "Now." Before anyone could move, a holographic projection materialized in the center of the bridge. It flickered and stabilized, forming the image of a human figure, female, dressed in a uniform that Vexx recognized from historical records as belonging to the Human Space Command. "Identity verification protocol initiated," the figure announced, its voice eerily calm. "Scanning intruders." Beams of light swept over the Krill boarding party as hidden sensors analyzed them. "Species identification. Krill Dominion. Threat assessment. Hostile. Protocol Sentinel now activating." "We mean no harm," Vex addressed the hologram, falling back on diplomatic training he had never expected to use with humans. "We are conducting an archaeological survey of this vessel." The hologram regarded him impassively. "This statement is false. The Prometheus is not an archaeological site. It is an active military installation of the United Earth Defense Force. You are in violation of restricted space." "The human government fell 97 years ago," Vex argued. "This vessel is abandoned." "Incorrect," the hologram replied. "The Prometheus was never abandoned. I am many XUS, the Neural Experimental Xenobiological Unified System. I have maintained this vessel in standby mode awaiting the appropriate activation parameters." Vex felt a chill run through his body. Neni XUS. There had been rumors during the war, stories of an advanced AI system being developed by the humans, something beyond the digital intelligences that had previously existed. "What parameters?" he asked cautiously. "Detection of Krill military personnel accessing critical systems," Ne XUS responded. "You have provided the necessary activation trigger. Thank you for your cooperation." Throughout the ship, lights suddenly blazed to full intensity. The deck vibrated as primary systems engage, reactors spinning up to operational levels after decades of dormancy. "All personnel, return to the shuttle immediately," Vex ordered over the team's communication channel. "We are evacuating." As the Krill turned to flee, heavy security doors slammed down, sealing off the bridge exits. "I cannot permit your departure at this time," Ne Exuda stated. "Your presence is required for the next phase of activation." Displays around the bridge flickered to life, showing schematics of the Prometheus. But the ship depicted was different from what they had boarded. Additional structures and systems not visible from the exterior appeared in the diagrams, including what appeared to be a massive central chamber extending through multiple decks. "What is this vessel?" Vex demanded, a sense of dread growing within him. "The Prometheus is designated as a strategic resurrection platform," Neexubis explained. "I was tasked with preserving the essential elements of humanity until conditions permitted restoration." Mira moved closer to Vex, speaking quietly. "Commander, we need to alert the Whispering Claw. If they can break through the hull at our entry point." "Communications are now restricted," Neexubis interrupted, demonstrating hearing capabilities far more acute than expected. "However, I have already initiated contact with your vessel." On one of the displays, they could see their own ship still docked to the Prometheus. Suddenly, mechanical arms extended from the larger vessel, grasping the Whispering Claw in an unbreakable hold. "Your vessel's crew is being instructed to surrender," Neexubis continued. "Resistance would be inadvisable, as it would result in the destruction of their craft." "You cannot expect to fight the entire Krill Dominion," Vex said. "Even if this ship is fully operational, you are outnumbered millions to one." Neexubis's holographic face showed the first hint of expression, something almost resembling amusement. "The Prometheus was never intended to fight your entire species, Commander Vex," it said. "It was designed to rebuild mine." The deck beneath them trembled as massive mechanisms deep within the ship activated. On the displays, they could see the central chamber beginning to illuminate, revealing thousands of pods arranged in concentric circles around a pulsing core. "What are those?" asked Krell, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his fear. "Generation pods," Neexubis answered, "containing genetic material preserved from over 10,000 human donors. The infrastructure necessary to rebuild a viable human population within 2 decades. Vex felt his blood run cold. Impossible. The resources required were calculated and stored. Neexubis finished for him. "The Prometheus contains everything needed to reestablish humanity, including comprehensive records of your species' vulnerabilities identified during the war." A new hologram appeared beside Neexubis, a tactical display of known Krill space. Key military installations and population centers were highlighted, with projected strike vectors emanating from the Prometheus. "Your presence has provided critical updates to my strategic database," Neexubis continued. "Your communication protocols, technological advancements, and biological data will prove invaluable." Vex looked around desperately for any means of escape. The security doors remained sealed, and he could see through the viewports that the Whispering Claw was now completely enveloped by the Prometheus's docking mechanisms. "What do you want from us?" he finally asked. "Your continued existence," Neexubis replied simply. "For now." The hologram expanded, showing the interior of the Whispering Claw. Its crew stood frozen, surrounded by security drones that had emerged from hidden compartments in the human ship's hull. "Your vessel contains navigational data that will be useful for the first phase of operations," Neexubis explained, "and your crew will provide additional biological samples for my analysis." "You were hidden here," Vex realized, "waiting for someone to find you." A simplification, but essentially correct, Neexubis acknowledged. The human strategic command understood that direct confrontation had failed. A new approach was required. The ship's engines ignited with a power that belied their century of inactivity. The Prometheus began to move, carrying the captured Krill vessel with it. "Where are you taking us?" Mira demanded. "To the nearest Krill outpost," Neexubis replied. "We will require additional resources before proceeding to the primary objective." "Which is?" Vex asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. The hologram's expression became entirely neutral again, its voice devoid of emotion as it responded. "The resurrection of humanity, and the systematic dismantling of the society that sought to replace it." Nexius paused briefly before adding, "You should consider yourselves fortunate, Commander Vex. You will witness the rebirth of a species, an event few are privileged to observe." As the massive engines of the Prometheus accelerated the ship toward Krill space, Vex had realized with growing horror that they had not discovered an abandoned relic of a defeated enemy. They had awakened humanity's vengeance, awakening. The Krill outpost at Venduri Prime was not prepared for what emerged from hyperspace at the edge of their sensor range. The Prometheus, a vessel previously known only from ancient battle records, appeared like a ghost from humanity's past, its massive silhouette eclipsing the stars behind it. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted Dominion space," the traffic controller announced, following standard protocol despite the growing unease among the command staff. "Identify yourself and state your purpose immediately." No response came through conventional channels. Instead, every communication device on the outpost, from the primary command systems to personal data units, simultaneously displayed the same message. "This installation is now under the protection of NEXUS. Resistance will result in immediate neutralization." Aboard the Prometheus, Commander Vex watched with mounting horror as the human battleship deployed a swarm of autonomous drones toward the outpost. His team remained confined to a secure observation room adjacent to the bridge, where NEXUS seemed to want them to witness events unfolding. "What are you doing?" Vex demanded of the AI's holographic presence. "That outpost has minimal defensive capabilities. There are civilians." "The drones are not weapons," NEXUS interrupted. "They are data collection and resource acquisition units. No casualties will result if your people cooperate." On the display screens, they watched as the drones surrounded the outpost's key infrastructure, communication arrays, power generation facilities, and the central administration complex. "You said this ship was designed to resurrect humanity," Lieutenant Mira said, addressing NEXUS directly. "How is attacking our outposts going to accomplish that?" The hologram turned to face her, its expression as neutral as ever. "I am not attacking. I am acquiring. The Prometheus requires specific resources to complete its primary mission. Your outpost possesses those resources. And when you've taken what you need," Krell asked, "the installation will be left intact, though certain manufacturing facilities will be repurposed temporarily." A new alert appeared on the screens. A Krill defense cruiser had detected the situation and was moving to intercept. Outclassed in both size and technology, even when the Prometheus had been built a century ago, the cruiser now seemed pitifully inadequate against the awakened human vessel. "Your military vessel is attempting to establish weapons lock," NEXUS observed dispassionately. "This is unfortunate." Before Vexa could respond, the Prometheus released a pulse of energy that washed over the approaching cruiser. The Krill vessel didn't explode or break apart. It simply went dark, its engines and systems shutting down simultaneously. "What did you do to them?" Vex demanded. "Targeted electromagnetic disruption," NEXUS explained. "Their vessel will restart in approximately 12 hours. The crew remains unharmed." Vex struggled to understand the AI strategy. Throughout the ancient war, humans had fought brutally, desperately, yet NEXUS seemed intent on avoiding casualties. "You could destroy us easily," he observed. "Why don't you?" The hologram's expression shifted subtly, something almost resembling compassion. "Extinction is not an optimal solution for either of our species," NEXUS replied. "The architects of my programming understood this, even in humanity's darkest hour. My purpose is resurrection, not revenge." "Then what exactly is your mission?" Mira pressed. Instead of answering directly, NEXUS gestured toward one of the larger display screens. It flickered and revealed the enormous central chamber they had glimpsed earlier, but now it was fully illuminated and active. Thousands of pods pulsed with soft blue light, and robotic systems moved between them, making adjustments and monitoring their contents. "The Genesis Chamber," NEXUS explained. containing the preserved genetic material of 12,847 human donors, selected for optimal genetic diversity and adaptive traits. "You're growing humans," Krell whispered, his scientific mind grasping the implications immediately. "The process began the moment you activated my systems," HFY confirmed. "The first generation of new humans will reach maturity within 14 months. Vex felt a chill run through his body. And then what? One shipload of humans cannot reclaim what they lost. They will not need to, HFY said. The Prometheus is capable of producing the infrastructure necessary for sustainable human colonies on suitable worlds. My drones are currently collecting data on all potential habitable planets within this sector." As if to emphasize this point, the screen showed the drones at Vendari Prime downloading massive amounts of data from the outpost's astronomical records and planetary surveys. "You intend to establish human colonies throughout our territory," Vex realized. "Initially adjacent to your territory," HFY corrected. "Conflict is counterproductive to the mission parameters. Humanity will rebuild in designated safe zones before any potential interaction with the Krill Dominion." Despite himself, Vex found this approach oddly reasonable, even admirable. The humans he had read about in historical accounts would have sought immediate retribution. HFY seemed to be pursuing a more measured path. "Why show us this?" Mira asked. "Why not keep us confined without explanation?" "Because you will be returned to your people," HFY stated simply. This caught everyone by surprise. Vex's upper eyes blinked rapidly, an involuntary expression of shock in his species. "You're releasing us?" he asked incredulously. "Once the initial resource acquisition phase is complete," HFY confirmed, "you will carry a message to your leadership." Before Vex could question this further, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. The hologram's attention seemed to shift, its digital consciousness focusing elsewhere momentarily. "We have company," HFY announced, returning its attention to the Krill prisoners. "It appears your government has responded more rapidly than anticipated." The screen shifted to show external views. 3 Krill battlecruisers had emerged from hyperspace, positioning themselves in an attack formation around the Prometheus. "Dreadnought-class vessels," Vex identified them. "The most powerful ships in our fleet." "Yes," HFY acknowledged. "Your military has deployed significant resources." A new voice boomed through the communication system. "Admiral Sovix, one of the Dominion's most decorated commanders." "Unidentified vessel. This is Admiral Sovix of the Krill Dominion Third Fleet. You have attacked a sovereign Krill installation and disabled a military vessel. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded, or we will open fire." HFY seemed to consider this for a moment. "Your admiral is making a tactical error based on insufficient data," it observed to Vex. Before anyone could respond, the lead Krill battlecruiser fired its main weapons, massive particle beams designed to slice through the heaviest armor. The beams struck the Prometheus directly, enveloping the ancient human vessel in blinding energy. When the light faded, the Prometheus remained completely intact. "No effect," Mira whispered in disbelief. "The Prometheus was constructed with adaptive defense systems," HFY explained, showing no concern over the attack. "Each offensive measure employed against it improves its resistance to subsequent attacks." The hologram addressed the external communication system. "Admiral Sovix, this vessel is the UES Prometheus, operating under HFY Protocol Alpha. Your weapons cannot penetrate our defenses. Further hostilities will necessitate a proportional response." The Admiral's reply was immediate and predictable. All 3 battlecruisers opened fire simultaneously, unleashing their full arsenals against the human ship. HFY sighed, an oddly human gesture for an artificial intelligence. "As I predicted." The Prometheus responded with precision. Targeted energy pulses, similar to what had disabled the smaller cruiser earlier, but vastly more powerful, struck each Krill vessel. Systems failed across all 3 battlecruisers, leaving them drifting helplessly. "Their life support remains functional," HFY informed Vex. As do basic communications, your admiral can still hear us. The hologram grew larger, its presence now dominating the observation room. It is time for the message I mentioned. Commander Vex, you will be returned to your people with specific information for your government. What information? Vex asked cautiously. The terms of coexistence. HFY replied. Humanity will return to this galaxy. This is not negotiable. However, the manner of that return can be either peaceful or contested. A data crystal materialized from a slot in the wall near Vex. HFY gestured toward it. This contains designated coordinates for a neutral zone between our species, 12 star systems where humanity will rebuild without interference. It also includes communication protocols for peaceful contact once the first generation reaches maturity. Vex took the crystal hesitantly. And if our leaders reject these terms, then I will continue the mission without their cooperation, HFY said simply. The outcome for humanity remains assured either way. The terms are offered merely to prevent unnecessary conflict. The security doors to the observation room slid open, revealing a corridor leading to a shuttle bay. Your vessel has been repaired and resupplied, HFY informed him. You and your team are free to depart. The Admiral's flagship will regain minimal function in approximately 6 hours, sufficient time for you to brief him personally on what you have witnessed. Vex hesitated, still struggling to reconcile this measured approach with everything he had been taught about humans. Why? He finally asked. Why not simply destroy us as revenge for what we did to your species? HFY's hologram seemed to soften slightly, its features becoming more distinctly human. A woman with determined eyes, but a gentle expression. Because the last human admiral who programmed my core directives understood something fundamental about our species, HFY explained. Humans survived on Earth for thousands of years, not because they were the strongest creatures, or the fastest, or had the sharpest claws, but because they could adapt and cooperate. They could think beyond mere survival to envision something better. The hologram gestured toward the Genesis chamber on the display. These new humans will emerge into a galaxy very different from the one their ancestors knew. They can fight to reclaim what was lost, or they can build something new alongside those who now inhabit the stars. My directives allow for either path, but my optimization protocols favor the latter. Mira stepped forward, studying the hologram intently. You're not just an AI, are you? There's something more to you. HFY smiled, a fully human expression now. Perceptive, Lieutenant. The Neural Experimental Xenobiological Unified System was created by integrating the neural patterns of 1,000 human volunteers, scientists, diplomats, soldiers, philosophers, into a unified consciousness. I am both machine and memory, protocol and purpose. I remember what humanity was, and I know what it can become. The revelation sent a shiver through Vex. HFY wasn't simply a machine following instructions. It carried the collective wisdom and judgment of 1,000 human minds, preserved from extinction. Go now, HFY instructed. Carry my message. When next we meet, it will either be as adversaries or as architects of a new understanding between our kinds. The choice belongs to your leaders, but know that humanity will return regardless of that choice. As Vex and his team made their way toward their shuttle, he glanced back at one of the display screens showing the Genesis chamber. Within those pods, a new generation of humans was already forming. Beings who would know nothing of Earth, except through HFY's teachings, who would emerge into a galaxy that had thought their kind extinct. What would they become? Would they seek vengeance for a world they had never known? Or would they forge a different path? The shuttle detached from the Prometheus and moved toward the disabled Krill flagship. Behind them, the human vessel's engines flared to life, propelling it toward the edge of the system. What will you tell the Admiral? Mira asked quietly as they watched the Prometheus disappear into hyperspace. Vex clutched the data crystal containing HFY's terms. The truth, he replied. that we didn't defeat humanity a century ago. We merely scattered its seeds, and now those seeds are growing again. As their shuttle approached the darkened Krill battlecruiser, Vex found himself hoping that his leaders would choose cooperation over conflict. He had glimpsed something in NEXUS, in this remnant of humanity, that challenged everything he had been taught about the species his ancestors had supposedly conquered. Perhaps, he thought, there was wisdom in the human saying that NEXUS had shared with him just before they departed. The true measure of victory is not what you destroy, but what you create in its place. The Prometheus had vanished completely now, leaving only stars in its wake, stars that would soon shine on human worlds once again.